What is up, Earthnoids, Spacenoids, and everything in between? I am just a simple new type, and in this video, we are heading back to Earth during UC 0079. Specifically, we are heading to Southeast Asia as we begin our journey following Shiro Amada and the 8th Mobile Suit team. We seem to have a white base all the way up to December 31st of UC 0079. But let's rewind it back to October as we meet our new protagonist, Ensign Shiro Amada. So let's get into this. Shiro Amada and other fellow EFF soldiers are heading towards Earth in a small transport vessel. Outside of the transport vessel, a GM and Zaku fight. Shiro asks the captain if they could use the ball on board. He launches in the ball. The ball engages with the Zaku. Shiro tells the GM pilot Sanders to escape towards the transport vehicle. The ball uses a grappling hook and wraps around the Zaku while shooting it. Both the ball and Zaku explode, but the pilots escape. They are both flung out into space debris. Shiro notices the Zaku pilot is a woman. They engage in close combat with guns. The Zeon pilot is shot as well as out of ammo. She doesn't want to be taken as a prisoner, but Shiro helps her with her wounds. Their air isn't going to last forever. They split up to search for a radio to make contact. Meanwhile, the transport ship is repairing the GM. They find a missile pod and activate it, destroying a downed Magellan-class ship to grab the attention of someone. Zeon forces head to their location. Shiro tells her to go without him. She tells him that her name is Aina Sahalin. The GM comes to find Shiro right as the Zaku makes their escape with Aina. Back at the transport ship, Shiro takes a nap. He is the commander of the new 8th Mobile Suit team, and he has already experienced battle and a little love before his assignment even began. Shiro Amada meets with the battalion commander Kojima. He heads over to meet some of his new teammates. Corporal Mikkel Ninorik was on the transport ship with Shiro. He is the co-pilot of the hover truck and will serve as support with Elidor. Karen Joshua is a master sergeant and second in command of 8th MS team. She is a no-nonsense, ball-kicking leader that will be piloting one of the Gundams. Sergeant Terry Sanders was the GM pilot who helped find Shiro in space. He will also be a Gundam pilot. Elidor Massis is a sonar expert and will assist Miko in the hover truck. At the base, Shiro takes a look at his new mobile suit, the Gundam ground type. The RX-79 Gundam ground type is an early production mobile suit made up using surplus Gundam parts. But unlike the RX-78, the RX-79 didn't have a core block system and had all space functionality omitted, which actually makes it superior to the RX-78 in Earth gravity at least, due to it being lighter. Remember all those tests that were happening in Mobile Suit Gundam, Amado practicing to get faster at transforming between different G modules? That data was to be used to create a better RX-79. But because Zeon began its occupation on Earth, the RX-79 needed to be produced faster. In July, EFF established the 1st Mechanized Composite Battalion, also known as the Kojima Battalion, in Southeast Asia. They were given 12 units, some of which we are currently seeing being given to 8th MS team. Shiro launches with Sanders and Joshua in the Gundams, while Miko and Elidor launch in the hover truck. The M353A4 Bloodhound, better known as the hover truck, is a support vehicle that has Vulcan cannons, but its main function is the underground sonar, which senses vibrations and figures out location and movement of the enemy. Elidor is a sonar expert. He senses 2 Zakus nearby. Shiro spots one of the Zakus. He goes in for the attack, but Joshua stops him. If you haven't figured this out by now, this show is heavily influenced by the Vietnam War, and like the Vietnam War, they rely on guerrilla warfare to get the upper hand. Shiro doesn't understand this, but goes in for the attack anyways. Luckily, Sanders is there and uses a beam saber to destroy the Zaku. He notes that a Gundam is superior to the GM. Shiro pushes in towards the Zaku. The Zaku throws a flash grenade and makes its escape. The hover truck goes out to scout for Shiro. Shiro is pushed in too far and is now lost in the jungle. He gets out of his mobile suit to find some water. He finds a girl swimming. The girl notices Shiro and immediately starts shooting at him. As he runs away, he notices the Zaku is less than a kilometer away. He rushes back to the Gundam. The Zaku approaches Shiro. He hides in the bushes and shoots the Zaku. It hits, but the Zaku comes at the Gundam with its heat hawk. Shiro keeps shooting until the Zaku goes down. Shiro makes his way back to base. On a later mission, Joshua and Shiro are out scouting when a Zaku comes out of hiding. Also, the hover truck is noticing shots that are too accurate to the 8th MS team's location. It turns out to be pillboxes with a Zaku. A pillbox is a camouflaged blockhouse with a small opening to fire heavy weapons. There is a road leading up to the Zeon line of defense. Shiro plans on going around towards the waterfall while Joshua heads an attack on the front. Shiro makes his way around towards the rear, looking for that one girl he spotted from the other day. He spots her, but unfortunately for Shiro, she is a part of the guerrillas. They take the Gundam and attack Shiro. They tie him up and take him to their leader. Joshua hasn't heard from Shiro, but they start making their assault in the front. Meanwhile, the boss, who is the one girl's father, wonders if he can help their village. The boss agrees. The girl and Shiro head out in the Gundam. She tells Shiro that her name is Kika Rosita. He is running late on the operation. Shiro heads underwater. Meanwhile, Elidor is searching for Shiro, but spots 2 helicopters instead. Joshua and Sanders are struggling in the front. Luckily, Shiro makes his assault in the back, taking out one pillbox. The hover truck moves in. The Gundam hides in the river. 2 Zakus pass by. The gorilla comes in and attacks the Zaku. Shiro uses this opportunity. He gets out of the water and attacks the Zaku and battle helicopters. He is able to take out more pillboxes. The Gundam takes out a helicopter. Zaku comes in and pushes him into the water. They engage in an underwater melee battle. Shiro uses a flash bomb, jumps out of the water, and launches missiles on the Zaku. The Zaku isn't down, however, and it makes its escape. In the process of destroying the pillboxes and Zeon forces, they were able to liberate one of the villages that was once occupied by the guerrillas. Joshua asks Shiro to call her by her first name, Karen. She is very impressed that he was able to get the guerrillas to work with EFF. We will be calling her Karen from now on as well. In low Earth orbit, Zeon is testing the mobile armor Asperis. The pilot of Asperis is none other than Aina. It enters into Earth atmosphere. Back at EFF, a member of the 7th MS team is taunting Sanders about getting members of his team killed. They start fighting. The soldiers start taking bets on who would win. Shiro comes to help his team member right as Kojima appears and breaks everyone up. At Zeon, Aina and her brother Genius. Wait, really? Genius? Okay. They're celebrating the completion of the Asperis' first testing phase. They meet with a brash Admiral Yuri Kalani. At EFF, Sanders wants to request a transfer because he has lost every other teammate and is known as a jinx. Karen thinks he is being stupid and says he doesn't have the balls, so she kicks him in the balls. Shiro doesn't accept his request for transfer at the moment. The Asperis launches again from low Earth orbit, but descends too far. On the ground, Zeon forces pull back. Eleanor is able to pick up a transmission about the Asperis. No one makes a move except for Mikkel, who panics and shoots. They are now exposed. 2 DOPs protect the Asperis and assault the 8th MS team, but the Asperis attacks, obliterating the jungle around them. Sanders uses a beam saber and goes in for the attack. Shiro and Karen supports them. The Asperis makes its escape. Everyone is alive. Sanders is starting to ease up and stop thinking he is such a jinx. The hover truck comes back before the rest of the 8th. Miko goes to get the mail for Elidor. He receives mail notifying him that one of his songs will get recorded. They go out to the village to party. When heading up a bar, they walk in and notice everything is trashed. Suddenly, Zeke's soldiers surround the place. Miko and Elidor are being tortured while Aina is off in the distance. The 2 are set to be executed in the morning. They are being held in a hotel occupied by Zeon. Shiro returns to base and finds that Mikkel and Elidor are nowhere to be seen. The 8th goes out to find the 2 lost soldiers. While out looking, they run into Kiki. Mikkel and Elidor begin to fight with one another. While fighting, they accidentally knock out the Zeon guard like it's a Merry Melody skit. Really weird. They both make their escape. They run into a construction tank. Meanwhile, Shiro and the 8th make contact with Zaku's, firing on Elidor and Mikkel. Elidor tries to operate the construction tank. The cabin suffers heavy fire. A piece of shrapnel goes through his leg. An armored car fires on the construction tank. Elidor is able to take out the armored car. The 8th finds Elidor and tends to his wounds. Luckily, Karen was a medical student and is able to mend his wounds with no problem. Karen punches Elidor while Shiro slaps Mikkel and tells him that he should never disobey orders again. Meanwhile, Elidor touches Karen's boobs. Elidor will be put on the back line and taken to medical care. He looks over Karen before driving off. The 8th go out on another mission. As they make their move towards the jungle's outlying desert to look for the Asperis, Shiro's left foot starts malfunctioning. They stop to fix it. According to one Reddit user, because we see a desert, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam are off the map, and it seems that they are actually located somewhere around the Korean peninsula. But people also seem to forget that Japan also has deserts such as the Totori sand dunes, which would also make sense. But who knows? The Gobi Desert is closer to Korea, so that also makes sense as well. Karen notices some of these mountains are paved with glass, which means beam weapon technology was used in the area. They think it may be that weird Xeon mobile armor they ran into. Mikkel almost kills Shiro while also complaining about treating him like a kid. Pick and choose your battles. Meanwhile, Mikkel is starting to lose it. He is unfocused because of BB's letters. Since episode 1, Mikkel has been writing back and forth with his girlfriend, BB. Kiki steals Mikkel's letters and makes fun of him. But as she continues reading the letter, she realizes that Mikkel's girlfriend is trying to distance herself from Mikkel. She apologizes for taking his letters. Mikkel is being a little bitch and complaining about not being able to deliver his letter to his girlfriend that seems to have moved on from him. Sanders ends up switching places with Mikkel, piloting the Gundam. Everyone is wound up. Tensions are high. Suddenly, Elidor's song comes on the radio. Everyone starts to lighten up. It's been days of them camping out in the desert, but their camping paid off as Aina in the Asperis makes its return. They shoot off nets in the caverns and trap the Asperis. Support fire attacks the 8th from above. The Asperis suddenly shows up right in front of Mikkel. Shiro jumps in to save him. The Gundam uses its beam saber on the Asperis. Aina transmits a message to the Gundam. Shiro recognizes that voice. It is Aina. The Asperis takes off with Shiro still hanging on. The 8th just lost their commander. Now, before we move on to the next episode, I want to note that by the time that this episode originally aired in Japan, the director Takeyuki Kanda was fatally killed in a car crash. For the remainder of the series, Umanosuke Ida will be the director. Admiral Yuri Kalani is one of the last remaining holdouts in Odessa. They are the last to evacuate from the area. Shiro is still hanging onto the Asperis. He gets out of the Gundam and climbs onto the Asperis. Aina jumps out as well. They talk while floating above Earth. The Asperis is struggling to stay level. Shiro uses the Gundam's thrusters to counter the force of gravity. It somehow works, but Shiro, thinking he would die, tells Aina that he loves her. The cliff breaks and the Gundam falls. Shiro evacuates before the Gundam crashes. Aina turns off her radio. She wants to find Shiro before Zeon finds and kills him. The weather is too bad for Zeon to continue their search party anyways. Shiro ejected on the mountains where snow is falling. He passes out from the cold. When he wakes up, Aina is by his side. He is suffering from minor frostbite on his fingers. Shiro uses the Gundam's beam saber to create a hot springs. Meanwhile, Zeon has officially lost Odessa. Off in the distance, Fettes and Zeon fight one another. A gun parry approaches the Asperis. Aina quickly self-destructs the mobile armor, taking out the gun parry. Aina is rescued by a dot. Shiro realizes that they can never be together. Genius was spying on Aina and finds out that Aina is in love with the enemy. Meanwhile, Shiro preaches peace to his superior officers. This is their reaction. He is confined until his tribunal is over. Since Odessa is no longer in Zeon control, Southeast Asia will be Admiral Yuri's new headquarters. He also wants to discontinue the Asperis project, but Genius does not like that. The 8th are informed that the guerrillas' village is being overrun by Zaku's. The 8th goes to meet up with Shiro. Captain Hiran Nikard luckily has a forged battle operation form with Kojima's signature on it. They go off to save the villages. At the village, one of the Zakus picks up and drops Kiki. Another gorilla responds with a rocket to the Zaku pilot's face. It looks like the village must now fight, but the 8th makes their way to help support the gorillas. Shiro saves Kiki, but Kiki notices that her dad's home has been destroyed, killing him in the process. The 8th goes after the remaining Zakus with bazookas. Karen fires in the Gundam from afar, while Sanders flanks from a distance. Shiro goes in and dodges a Zaku like a boss and forces them to surrender. But before he can make them surrender, the guerrillas come in to attack. The Zaku fires anti-personnel rounds and takes out some of the guerrillas. Shiro is left with no choice but to kill the Zaku. Surrender is no longer an option. The villagers mourn their loss. Shiro is conflicted what he is doing in this war. Kiki wants the 8th to leave and let the village grieve without them. EFF, along with Commander Kojima, run a simulation. It shows the Asperis destroying Jaburo. They are concerned of this mobile armor's power. They are also concerned of Shiro Omada's allegiance to EFF. The battalion gets Sanders to spy on Shiro's command. He doesn't like this. Elidor is back on the front lines with the 8th. They are planning a drop mission. Before we get into the mission, one thing to note is that the Asperis that self-destructed was technically the Asperis 2. The Asperis 1 was the first mobile armor during the 8th's first encounter. After the confrontation, Aina gets upgrades in the same city that Mikkel and Elidor are being tortured. After these upgrades, the mobile armor was considered the Asperis 2. And remember, Shiro's Gundam was attached to the Asperis 2 when it self-destructed. His Gundam is more or less destroyed. The RX-79 was made using surplus RX-78 parts. Because of this, there wasn't a lot of resources to throw around for the Kojima Battalion and the 8th. Now this is where the 8th MS team really outshines other parts of the UC timeline. We truly see the ingenuity, simple grunt soldiers trying to make it through this war. I'm talking about the Easy 8. The RX-79G Easy 8 Gundam Easy 8 is a product of working with what you got. It stands for Extra 08. Get it? The chest armor is a modified Zaku 2 shoulder shield, which makes it more resistant to head-on Zaku attacks. The Vulcan guns on the chest no longer exist. The signature V-fin is removed and replaced with an antenna. The armor is reinforced to make it durable, but it lacks of Luna titanium, which makes it lighter, allowing it to be more mobile. But I thought Luna titanium is light and durable. Never mind. Let's not question it. Regardless, this unit is more agile and has better communication than the stock RX-79. Karen is the first one out on the drop mission, but once she drops, a Gao appears right below them. They attack Karen's Gundam. Shiro in the Easy 8 drops onto the Gao and tells it to cease fire or be destroyed. The Gao's engine suddenly goes out. In the distance, Admiral Yuri is looking out for the Gao and spots it on fire. Karen and the hover truck make their landing. Suddenly, an At guy comes out of the water and knocks the head off of Karen's Gundam. Elidor goes after Karen. Mikkel distracts the At guy with the hover truck, while Elidor goes to save Karen. The Gundam doesn't have any visuals anymore. Elidor acts as Karen's eyes. He helps to shoot down the At guy. Aina finds out that not only is Genius not stopping the Asperis program, but he is also supplying soldiers with some mysterious upper-type drug to keep soldiers working through the hours. The 8th powers through the jungle. During this time, Sanders told Shiro that Captain Ryer is asking Sanders to watch over Shiro. They don't seem to still trust him. While talking, they are met with the Magella Attack Force. They engage in battle. The Magella Attack Force makes their way back to Admiral Yuri. When heading back to base, they are locked out. Genius has taken control of operations. He blows up the tunnel towards the base, killing the Magella Attack Force and Admiral Yuri. Genius does this because Giran Zabi is currently unaware of the current state of the Asperis program, so he takes matters into his own hands. The Fetties start their assault on the Xeon Mountain base. Core boosters bomb the area, but are ineffective at getting through to the base. The Fetties want to accidentally set off one of the mobile suit's fusion reactors, so they can wipe their hands blame from breaking the Antarctic Treaty. If a mobile suit's nuclear reactor goes off in battle, it would be hard to find intent, and most would assume it simply went off in battle. But that does lead to another question about universal century. If giant walking nuclear bombs are flying around, punching each other, shouldn't nukes be going off accidentally and randomly anyways? 3,000 Zaku 2s were produced during the 1-year war. Are you telling me there wasn't one nuclear accident during all of this? And that isn't including any other mobile suits or mobile armors. Anyways, I digress. The 8th is also on the battlefield along with the RX-75 gun tank mass production type. The difference between the gun tank from OG Gundam and the mass-produced version is a lack of core block system and improvements on its range. They take out a Zaku and a Dom. Aina helps Xeon forces evacuate. Colonel Norris Picard helped raise Aina and Genius, and Aina thinks of him as a father in many ways. Picard decides to go out in his Golf to help protect Aina. Meanwhile, Genius poisons everyone in typical Colt fashion. Picard goes out in the goof and attacks Shiro. Shiro mentions Aina's name. Picard realizes that this is the man that Aina is in love with. Shiro rips off his own arm and uses it as a melee weapon. He destroys Picard's goof, but it was able to take out all of the gun tanks. Elidor notices a familiar sound in the hover truck. It is the Asperis. Both Aina and Genius are in the Xeon mobile armor. They begin their attack. Shiro, in the moment, decides to leave the service. Karen was given orders to execute Shiro if he decides to abandon his role, so she decides to shoot him as he walks away. Karen projects her insecurities about men, but she can't shoot Shiro. She simply shoots around him as Shiro walks away. Meanwhile, Aina asks the Fetty soldiers for a truce. She actually didn't attack, but created a line in which Fetties must not pass until their forces have evacuated the mountain base. She asks for a ceasefire. The Fetties agree, but launch 2 GM snipers anyways. This is the same guy who wants to accidentally crack a fusion reactor. At the base, Kojima has had enough of Captain Ryer's shit and leaves, saying he is not different than Xeon. He goes to capture Shiro himself. Meanwhile, Genius takes control of the Asperis and begins attacking Earth forces. The GM sniper takes out a retreating Zanzibar ship. Aina is furious. She uses her main weapons to attack, but she doesn't hit EFF headquarters. Shiro approaches her in the Easy 8. Aina tries to preach the ideas of peace to Genius, but he isn't having it. He shoots Aina. She falls out of the mobile armor. The Easy 8 catches her. She isn't dead, however. She was saved by the watch she gave Shiro. We haven't really talked about the watch, but Aina gave Shiro her watch when they first met in episode 1. After they met again, after the destruction of the Asperis 2, Shiro gave the watch back. This watch saved Aina's life. They get out of the way of the Asperis. Both Aina and Shiro get in the Easy 8. They have no choice but to kill Genius and the Asperis. The Easy 8 attacks the Asperis right as it attacks the base. It seems like the Easy 8 is destroyed as well as EFF base. In space, a Musai-class ship launches a Komsai with children on board. The Musai ship goes down. UC-0080. Back in Southeast Asia, the war is over. All that remains are fragments of chaos. The 8th was disbanded and Mikhail was discharged. However, he still wants to finish his mission and find Shiro. He looks at a picture of his old girlfriend, Bibi. Kiki is also with him. She destroys the picture of Bibi. While floating down the river, they stumble on the Komsai. They decide to crash there for the night. When they wake up, they're tied up by Xeon children. The kids take them to their commander. The kids all seem somewhat off. This is probably because these children are all new types. We can deduce this from earlier in the episode when Kiki found a paper written by Dr. Flanagan. Remember, Dr. Flanagan is the founder of the Flanagan Institute, which is a place for new types to cultivate their new type potential. The kids bury someone. Kiki and Mikhail ask who it is. The kids mention that it is a person named Aina. Mikhail freaks out and demands to know where Shiro is. The kids tell them that he is dead, but something seems up. The kids eventually tell them that they ran into Shiro and Aina, and they eventually faked their deaths in order to start anew, and gave these kids their names. The kids tell them that they headed north. These kids never had names. They were just referred to as the kid, kind of like how I'm doing right now. So their names kind of mean a lot to them at this point. The next day, the kids are gone. Mikkel and Kiki begin their search again. Eventually, they find a cabin, and with it, they find Aina and Shiro. Aina seems to be pregnant. Shiro and Aina are alive, and were able to escape the war and allow their love to thrive. And that will do it for this episode of Mobile Suit Gundam 8th MS Team. This is one of my favorite Mobile Suit series. I genuinely appreciate not following space wizards, simply following the grunts of the war. It is rare that two people make it out of the war, let alone find happiness afterwards. So soak this in, people. There aren't going to be too many of these happy endings, unfortunately. I eventually would like to cover Thunderbolt, but for now, we are going to move forward in time to the year UC 0080. But that will do it for this video, new types. Remember, it is possible to escape the war to find happiness. Very unlikely, but possible. Peace.